Hi there, Leo. Welcome to your mid-June 2018 tarot update. It's Raina here. And the reason the cards are already laid out is because there was an interruption and I had to postpone doing the actual reading after I had filmed myself laying out the cards. But I was grateful that it happened before I had actually gotten too far into the reading. So the centerpiece of this reading is the Five of Swords, which is a card of, in this deck, this is the Druid Craft deck. They only show one person behind the individual in the forefront. And you can see that the other individual is stooped over, kind of hunched over, and that is supposed to be symbolic of defeat. You know, this is kind of like some kind of a conquest where this individual has won the battle, but have they lost the war? Because this can be an issue of someone who uses underhanded means to get what they want. And in the Rider-Waite deck, they show two people in the background, and I think that in a lot of ways that can be more helpful to show that, you know, like if this is in a workplace situation, that there can be one person who is trying to get one over on coworkers or something along those lines. And I guess it doesn't really matter how many people are in the background, but I think of the group dynamic of it. And if you're in a workplace where there's some kind of person who is like a bully and is trying to use any means necessary to get what they want, then that probably would be what this card represents. And hopefully you're not that person. This may be, you may be the person in the background. But the important thing about this, this may not even be something that's happening for you right now. Maybe you finally pull the plug on it, but there's residual effects because you're somebody who is still thinking about what happened. Usually Leo people are aspiring to be leaders in a position of authority. So it's kind of an interesting thing about that, because let's say you are in a position of authority and you are dealing with an underling who was maybe trying to flatter you to get that inside track or to kind of like be the person who was in charge, then you're still affected by that as well. You don't have to be in a subordinate position or in a kind of like a lower position to be affected by somebody's bad behavior. Even if you're a supervisor, it can still suck you into that negative situation. In a personal relationship, there can be somebody in your life who is being malicious with words. They could be spreading gossip about you. They could be slandering. They could be just bad-mouthing you. And it's funny, I'm using these words like slander, badmouth, gossip. And I don't know if I said this to your sign before or not, but I worked with a woman once, and English wasn't her first language, and we were talking about probably something in the workplace, probably complaining about something that was going on. And she said, you know, this isn't gossip because it's true. And so her thing was, she was confusing slander with gossip. Gossip means just talking about somebody behind their back. I mean, you could be saying, you know, totally 100% true things. I guess gossip could be something good too. It doesn't, you could be saying, you know, great things are happening to somebody else, but you're just talking behind their back. I always think it has a negative connotation, though. I'll have to check that out to see if it has to be negative. But In any case, the point being that all of those things, even if something is true, but it's negative, it can still hurt somebody else because it can damage their reputation, and it can create this false impression because it's slanted. You know, if any of us were talked about by somebody else, we'd probably, you know, it gives like an imbalanced perspective on people, and it kind of poisons the well. I mean, if you don't know somebody very well and somebody says something bad about them, you may start to think bad things about that person without knowing the full story. So that's why it can be bad, and this could be happening to you. And we have in the past position the World card. So that almost suggests that you ended some, you know, major phase in your life. Maybe you were working at a certain job for 10 years, 15 years, and you walked away. Maybe it wasn't under the best of circumstances, but you left that place, and they're still talking about you. They're trying to destroy your reputation, so that, you know, if you're in the industry, whatever it is, people will have your reputation following you, or what's the term, that the reputation like precedes you, you know, that it comes before you. And that can be hurtful if somebody's deliberately trying to badmouth you. Same with a relationship. If you ended a marriage and it was going on for 10, 20, 30 years, and your ex didn't appreciate that, and they, instead of dealing with their hurt, they tried to besully you, besmirch you. I don't even know if besully is a word. I think I made that up. But, you know, trying to drag you through the mud, then that might be something that you're dealing with. And that might be what is this thing going on right now. Then we have here the Princess of Wands, good news. So we have communication that may not be so pleasant, maybe not to you directly, but about you. And then we have good news. So it's possible that if you have been looking for work, you hear from a potential employer. And that makes you feel like great, because you've gone on to, you've moved on with your life. And also this could indicate that you are beginning a relationship with somebody and you feel very thrilled. Five of Swords could also be an air sign person that you have left the relationship with. In July, at the end of July, there will be a lunar eclipse in Aquarius. There's actually going to be the pair of eclipses. One in your sign, Leo, and that's in August, but the first in late July. And these will affect the polarity of Leo Aquarius, and that's your 1st and 7th houses. So relationship issues might come to the fore in that time frame. But of course, sometimes eclipses are felt a month earlier. Sometimes the issues that lead to the final decision or, you know, event happening are, there's already like kind of like storm clouds brewing or what have you. So that could be what's going on here. Now with the Princess of Wands, this could be a new relationship with somebody, and this feels much more warm, because if you were with an air sign, like your opposite sign, Aquarius, Gemini, Libra, you may have been feeling out in the cold for some reason. You might, well, the reason being, as air signs, you may have been with somebody who wasn't that demonstrative of their affections. They may have, you may have had things in common with them, and there may have been good qualities that you saw in them, but the romantic side of things, unless they were a Libra, I guess, may have been lacking. And so now if you're with a fire sign person, Aries, another Leo, or Sagittarius, it may feel a lot more like your cup of tea. And this is the spiritual message. So it's not so much looking at it from a practical point of view, but just kind of reminding you that relationships have to be a mutual thing. And if you feel in any relationship as if the person you're with doesn't get you, or they don't have a style of showing that they care that really feels convincing to you, then you have to decide how you're going to deal with that. Of course, sometimes people have things they need to work on too. It's not like it's always the other person's responsibility. And some people, they really do care, but they don't feel comfortable saying I love you, or to be affectionate in the way that you might think you have to be in order to be a partner that is dedicated to the relationship. And Leo people, you know, want that attention, and they want that demonstration that's important to you. And I can understand that, you know, but I think sometimes people get misunderstood too, that, you know, they get accused of not caring when they actually do. In this particular case, though, with the Five of Swords, I think that this person was underhanded. And so they, you know, the fact if they didn't say I love you, that was just one more, you know, strike against them in terms of you staying in a relationship with them. Well, crosses you is the Nine of Wands, and this is a card of, you know, building that fortress and having those boundaries that are very helpful in letting people know what you're willing to tolerate and what you're not willing to tolerate. Now, this is a challenge thing. So what does that mean? This means that there's something going on that is excessive in this area. You're putting up walls, or maybe there's a chance that you're putting up too many walls, and that can lead to a sense of, you know, somebody not being able to kind of like get through to you because you're not available. Although the other thing too is you might possibly feel a sense of, I don't know, having something taken out of you because of this experience. And so it's very important not to buy into whatever may have happened. The Nine of Wands in reverse may make you feel like you are weakened by what has happened. And for Leo people, that sense of, you know, image and wanting to appear to be together and successful is can be too important for them. And the other thing is that you've ended a cycle. So even if somebody is still talking smack about you or still trying to make you look bad, it's really on them. You know, I was watching this video with narcissists, about narcissists, and this man was saying that sometimes a narcissist will badmouth the person that has stayed away from them. And that's just their way of, you know, getting back at the person and trying to have control over the situation. And this man was saying, you know, if the person is a balanced person who's listening to this, they'll know that this person is off, that there's something wrong. And that really made a lot of sense to me. The problem is that too many people, you know, they don't quite get it, and they are quick to judge, and they might believe that person, you know. There's nothing we can do about those people. They're still learning as well. And but anyway, the point being, don't allow yourself to weaken. So if you got away from somebody who you felt was not a good person to be with, and maybe he tries to come back, or she tries to come back, and they try to worm their way back into your life, and they act charming. This is especially true for the narcissist personality. They really can be manipulative. They really can try to act like they have your best interests at heart, and they've turned over a new leaf. So if somebody tries to do that to you, you have to be aware. Don't get caught off guard. You know, I think that's what the 9 of Wands is, that you might be at risk of getting caught off guard because they may say what you want to hear, and you may weaken, and that would be a disaster, especially since there's something new that is making you feel a sense of enthusiasm for life. And so I mentioned perhaps a new relationship, but this could definitely be a new job. You may hear good news about that. What's coming in is represented by the Queen of Cups, and this is a card that I have gotten at least 2 other times, I think, in other readings, which is not usual for this card and me. And this is a card of a very feminine, double feminine energy. So it's intuitive, very psychic, and it's a card that represents really tuning into your intuition. And you might say, oh, you know, who cares about my intuition? I don't even, how is that going to help me? Well, something about timing, about knowing exactly what the right decision to make. This can be like a spiritual influence in your life, so that can be very inspirational. And for some people, you may be getting counseling of some sort. There's also this sense of creativity, which is something that I totally associate with Leo to begin with, this creative spirit. And that may be, you know, perhaps you've met somebody who shares that, because the wands are all about creativity. So artists may be finding an artistic community, and or maybe you go to some kind of a psychic or a woman who has maybe a spiritual healer. Perhaps you have decided to become a healer yourself, and that might connect to the Princess of Wands, that this is a new direction you're going in for a new career path. The outcome is the 7 of Swords, another card I've been getting lately, and I did pick an additional card. Not that the 7 of Swords has to be bad. It's interesting. I was noting in the other readings where I've gotten that card over and over again, that typically, like for instance, the Rider-Waite deck, they show somebody kind of sneaking out, and it's like there's like the sense of dishonesty with this card, even like physical theft, and it could be cheating and things like that. But this card, if you see how they depict it here, it's kind of like a mental thing. And of course with swords, it can always be this sense of, you know, some kind of thing going on, your thoughts or your communications. But the number 7 is like a more of a mystical number, and it might be more solitary. So the person is doing it on their own. They're thinking. So we could really say, actually somebody wrote to me and they said, you know, this can be about strategy. And I was looking at this and I was thinking, Now I think too that the number 7 relates to artists. So again, we're talking about the Queen of Cups. You might have this great idea for a novel and you're like kind of holed up and you're doing it at this time. But it could be that you're just trying to figure out how you're going to get on with your next phase of life. So maybe you're plotting and scheming and planning. And I picked an additional card and I got the High Priestess. And I think that was another sign. I got the Queen of Cups and the High Priestess too. So we're really talking about spiritual situations. We're talking about, this is not necessarily anything to do with the mundane world, although if this is a career choice, of course it is. And some of you, it might very well be something that you are thinking of going into as a profession. So anything with the occult, anything with meditation, and maybe spending a lot of time alone in contemplation. Again, people who are working in research, you know, the number 7 too is about research. People who are either training for or working in as counselors, as psychologists, as, you know, somebody going into some kind of a spiritual training. Maybe you're training to be a healer. It could be just you connecting with the higher self. And I say just, like that's, you know, not that big of a deal. No, I mean, this is a very, to me, this reading is very interesting because it's really about a lot of inner stuff for you, inner work, Leo. Oh, you know, I didn't think about this, you know. As we end the month, where the sun goes into Cancer on the solstice, and that is your 12th house. So that makes perfect sense now. Because, you know, even this card, the World, I mean, this is like the 12th house is the final house in the astrological wheel. So it's, you know, right before we start a new cycle again. And there's a lot of times there is like kind of that inward hibernation period the month before your solar return. So maybe that's why I'm picking up on this at the end of June. Alrighty then, I hope that you enjoyed this, Leo. If you'd like a personalized reading from me, please check the link below this video to take you to my website, rainamoonastrology.com. God bless. Bye.